welcome back. It's week 3 of the Winterberry Lane Quilt Sew Along. By now you should be really racking up a nice big pile of the mistletoe kiss blocks. So the previous 2 weeks we've aimed to sew 5 per week, and this coming week we're going to sew the final 5. So you're going to have 15 mistletoe kiss blocks in total, and hopefully by now you're really starting to get the hang of them. You're putting into practice the batch sewing that I showed you in the first week's video. So I talked to you about batch sewing, so hopefully you've got the hang of that, and that's something that you can take forward into future projects. Last week we spoke about some rotary cutting tips to kind of get really straight, accurate cuts and to stop your rulers wiggling around. So if you've missed either of those, I'll put links to the previous videos down below. In this week's video, I thought I'd answer a couple of questions that I've had about the quilt pattern, and also I thought we could have a look at my pressing method, because I feel like that's something that I can offer you some help with. So this week your goal is to sew another 5 of these. I know lots of you have spun on ahead and you've actually made all of your blocks, all of your mistletoe kiss blocks, and you're now looking at the hollyberry blocks. So I will release a video next Sunday with a tutorial on how to sew the hollyberry block. But some of you keenies have gone ahead and had a go at sewing them, and you've said that the instructions are really helpful. If you do want to march ahead and start sewing, you know, more blocks than we're doing per week in the sew along, then absolutely please do. Just follow the instructions step by step. And if you get stuck at any point, you know you can contact me through either a comment here or in the Facebook group. And while we're talking about that, thank you so much for everyone that has joined the Facebook group. It's been so much fun seeing your quilts come to life. Blocks featured at all in any of these videos, just tag me in them on social media and I'm taking screenshots of everything, and I'll put in as many as I can. So let's get on with some questions. So the first question I've had is this pattern layer cake friendly? So the pattern itself, I think all the pieces in the 2 blocks, let me just check. So I've had a quick look, and the biggest cut of fabric is this white backgroundy fabric. It's the 3rd fabric, it's the white. The longest piece that you need is 9.5 inches. So you can absolutely cut all of your pieces from a layer cake. The only thing I would say is a layer cake gives you very few repeats, if any. Some collections might give you 2 of each fabric, others will just give you 1 of the whole collection. And the fun thing, and I think the thing that makes this pattern really special, is that the idea is that you do have repeating colours so that you get that double chain. So for instance, let me just find a picture of the front. So if you have a look, you've got 2 Irish chains running through this. You've got the white chain that's kind of crisscrossing through, and then you've also got this secondary one of the red. Now that is created by using the same 2 colours in all of the blocks. You can do it scrappy, but as long as you're using a white scrappy fabric set and a red scrappy fabric set, and then the green is, you're able to kind of mix and match your greens a bit easier. But if you decide to do a complete scrappy quilt, of course you can, it's your quilt, but you're not necessarily going to get that double chain. And I think that's the really special part about this quilt. And that is the bit that I've had the most comments on when people have sent me pictures of their chains starting to come to life. And if you do use a layer cake, I'd absolutely love to see some photos. I'm definitely going to be creating this quilt in other colourways, and if you're interested I could actually mock them up on the quilt software that I use, and we can have a look at some different colours and kind of how that looks. But it was designed to be a kind of Christmas quilt, so that's why we've done it in, or that's why I've done it in the red, the green and the white. So the second question I had was, can I make a quilt block? Can I make a quilt just using 1 of the blocks? And again, absolutely. I've just popped up on my design wall 4 blocks. They're 12 inches, so they're a big size. And you can already see there's a cool pattern emerging. So we've still got here the kind of Irish chain, because you've kept all of your, or I've kept all of my squares red. So you still get that chain. And obviously as you build out the quilt, that's going to get bigger and bigger. You get this really sweet little 4 patch in the middle. Obviously I need to square mine up, but you get the general idea. So with this one, as long as you keep your smaller squares, and your center squares all the same color, or all in the same color family, so you might choose to do scrappy reds or whatever, you will still get that effect. And then what you could do is each of these, you could do different colours. A couple of other questions I've had is, do you have to keep up with the sew along? No, you don't. You buy the pattern, that's yours to keep forever. Just download it to your laptop and you can print that out and keep that forever. So you might want to make the pattern at a later date. You might not want to sew along with us. And all the videos are on my YouTube channel, saved into a playlist, and I'll put the link below, as I said, so that you can go in and you can access either or both whenever you like. The videos will be available for as long as my YouTube channel is available. So you'll have access to both. The videos are free. You can go on there and have a look at those and have a look and see whether it's the kind of thing that you fancy doing. And if you like the idea of doing it, you can go across and purchase the pattern, or you can purchase the pattern and, you know, go ahead and watch the videos. I've also been asked, is there a paper version of the pattern? No, I don't have I haven't actually looked into producing any of my patterns in paper form, other than me printing them and putting them into the kits that I've done in the past. But I am starting to think that as I release more patterns, which is my goal, to release a good stack of quilt patterns, that might be something I'll consider for the future. But right now, it's a PDF download. Hopefully that's answered the questions that I've had. And I thought we could have a look now at my kind of pressing routine. So I'm just going to flick my iron on. Now my iron does breathe, so you'll hear it kind of puffing. It's my iron. Let me just flick that on. Okay, so I've turned my iron on. I'm just going to create some space on my desk. Now, I've sewn up a little bunch of goodies over here. Let's make some space. So last night I was up until late sewing up these and trimming them all. So I'm going to work on these later on today and get these done. But I thought I could show you how I go about pressing. So these are these little blocks here. So this is, you've done your centre square. Where are they? Here. So you've done your centre square and you've attached your two sides. And then to go across the top, you've got the centre and the little red. So I'm going to show you how I would go about pressing these. I'm going to pop the camera over my shoulder so you can see my pressing mat, which is disgusting. I'm going to openly admit it. I've said it before. I need to figure out a better way. The mat is gross. It's so burnt. It's so used. I've spray starched on it and just pressed on it, and it still works fine. It just looks a bit grim. But anyway, ignore that and just listen to what I'm saying to you. But basically, I'm going to show you my little step-by-step method of how I would get this to lay as flat as I possibly can. The first thing to say, we are pressing, we are not ironing. Ironing comes when you're ironing, you know, your big pieces of yardage or fat quarters. You're going to give them a really good iron and get all the wrinkles out. Right now, if you did this on these shapes, because some parts of it are cut on the bias and you know, they might be cut at different angles and so on and so forth. If you start ironing these, the heat and the pressure is going to pull these out of shape. It's going to pull your stitches and it's going to really warp your accuracy. So the first thing to say is that you're not ironing. You're not back and forth ironing. You are pressing your iron carefully onto your seams to get them nice and flat. Okay, lecture over. I'm going to put you over my shoulder now and I'm going to show you how I would go about pressing. So these are fresh off the sewing machine. I've literally just sewn the seams and I've just folded them in on themselves. The nice bit about these bits is that you can actually sew both ends on and then press afterwards. Now the first thing that I do when they come off the sewing machine, so I've done a big batch and I'll just throw them on here 3 or 4 at a time, and then I'm going to get my iron nice and hot, and I'm not using any starch or anything on this, but I am going to use a tiny bit of steam. And this iron is amazing because you can actually just steam. Just going to steam it up. There we go. So I'm just going to use a tiny bit of steam, and all I'm doing is pressing the iron. I'm lifting up and just pressing them on those seams. And what this does is it just pushes all the threads, that's really hot now, pushes all the threads right down into the fabric, and it will just help things along as you go. Now this is something that I didn't used to do, and once I've started doing it, I realised the absolute benefit of it, but it does feel like an extra step, which is why what I'll tend to do is I'll take most of these and I'll just lay them all out, all across here, and I'll just do with my iron all the way along until I've given them all a good press. I'll let them cool, pack them back up, and then I'm ready to then start actually sewing. I'm then ready to start actually pressing my seams open. Now this is called setting your seams. You will probably hear other quilters talking about this, and it's just a really good practice. If you're looking for kind of leveling up your accuracy and leveling up getting your blocks even flatter than you're currently doing, this is what I would recommend. So the next thing I would do is I'm going to open my seams up and I'm going to press them flat. So these ones, I just open them up with my fingers, run my finger along. I also have, and I'm probably not using them in this instance, but another tool that's really useful. If you're not into finger pressing your seams, or you find that a little bit rough doing, grab yourself one of these. Now this is a Lori Holt seam roller. It is quite expensive, this one. There are definitely cheaper options on the market. I just treated myself to this one, A, because I love Lori Holt, and B, I'd wanted it for a while. It's been on my kind of wish list. And what this does is it enables you to just press your seams. So they will then sit like that and they're easier to then press. But it doesn't really do anything that finger pressing doesn't do. It just saves your fingers. And you don't have to do this step. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. I tend to do it if I'm using smaller pieces and it's more difficult to get my iron onto them. You can use quite a bit of pressure because you're only doing it on those seams. So 1 and then 2. There we go. Now, can you see? Now, can you see the seams are open? So it just means that all I need to do then is just pop my iron on the top. So I'm going to pop my iron on and that's it. Now, if I want to, I can use a bit of steam. Let's just warm this one up a bit. I've only just turned it on, so it's not getting too steamy. And there we go. Look how flat that is. And the second one. So this one's already started to close. And again, I'm just going to use a bit of steam and do it like that. Okay, so that's step 2. And then what I do is I flip it over, making sure that my seams are nice and flat. And then I give it a press. Oh, and then I give it a press from the front as well. So I'm just holding my iron on it, like that, a couple of seconds with a nice hot heat. And there we go. It's so flat, it's beautiful. Now, the other way of doing it is I've already set the seams. So I've set my seams, I'm going to open them up, flip it over. Now, the other way of doing it, if you don't want to kind of go to that extra step of using the seam roller or finger pressing, you can actually just flatten it out. So I'm pulling it very gently until I can feel it's completely flat. I'm holding it with one finger like this, and then I'm just using my thumb and my forefinger from this hand, and I'm just flattening it like this. And this is as far as I'm going to go. I'm then going to take the point of my iron, and this is where the Aliso iron is amazing because you've got a nice point that gets really hot. I'm just going to pop that on here, and I'm going to work my way along. Now, I'm not pressing and ironing, I'm lifting and pressing. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way along until I get to the other end, and then I'm just going to leave it to sit. And then I'm going to do the other end. Now, it doesn't get as flat. Can you see how that isn't as flat as the previous one? But it's a quicker method. So, you know, it's personal preference. And we're going to give it a press from the other side as well. So again, I'm going to go along here. And what I'm doing is I'm using that point of the iron to kind of push my seams open. But I'm not smashing it down. I'm not pressing it really, really hard. I'm not ironing backwards and forwards. And then what I would do is go to the centre of the iron and just give it a nice press. Like that, and then we're going to flip it over and do the same. Oh, it keeps getting stuck to my sleeve. We're going to do the same as we did with the previous one. I can give it a little wiggle, that's fine. We're just not doing anything too much. And there we go. That is beautifully pressed. Lovely open seams. Lovely open seams. So what do you think? Do you think it's something that you might try? I think it's really useful when you're making quilts to have these kind of little routines that you do for every quilt, especially if it's something that it works for you. So my encouragement to you is to just try these techniques. When I suggest things to you, try them out and see what you think. My iron's still puffing away down here. But as I was saying, it's useful to have a little toolbox of things that you can, or like a toolkit basically. So you have the notions and the equipment that you need, but it's also really useful to have little methods, little things that you can do that you know will make your life easier and that just give little improvements to your quilts as you go along. And I think learning pressing and getting the hang of like your own little pressing routine will be really useful for you and will just help you. You know, you're working on your accuracy, so you're working on your seam allowance, you're working on your rotary cutting, and now you can work on your pressing. And little bit by little bit, little tiny improvements, you will start to notice massive differences in your quilts, and you'll just enjoy it more. You know, if you've got a block that lays beautifully flat and it all lines up nicely, that is just the most satisfying feeling. Anyway, so this week we are going to be working on the final 5 mistletoe kiss blocks. I've got a big pile here, like I showed you at the beginning, of all the pieces that I've batch sewn and chain pieced everything. So I'm going to get these finished off hopefully over the next couple of days, and I'll have those all to show you. I want to put them all up on my design wall so we can see what all the mistletoe kiss blocks look like. And then next weekend we're going to be starting with the hollyberry blocks. Now they're a little tiny bit harder than these, but it's more about fabric placement and just concentrating on where you're putting things. So I encourage you, ahead of starting those, to, if you can, print out the pattern, or at least the page that has the cutting instructions for the hollyberry block with the image of the block, so that each time you're putting your pieces together, you're checking them. Because when I was making my prototypes, ask me how many I sewed in the wrong direction, because I wasn't concentrating. And I do have a habit of sewing quite late into the evening, which is not advisable. And that's when mistakes happen for me. So I now have the picture up on my desk, and I use that and refer to that every time. And that's what I suggest that you guys do as well. So that's week 3. Crack on, get your blocks done, share with me any images that you want to on Instagram. Just tag me at Beginners Quilting Hub, or send me messages on here if you've got some, and you can private message me the pictures, or ultimately come and join the Facebook group at Beginners Quilting Hub group on Facebook. It's free to join, and you just need to answer the joining questions and come into the group. And then later on this evening, I'll put a post out in the Facebook group, and we can all add our kind of up to date and where we're at photos and just cheer each other along. And if you're watching along and not making it yet, I hope you're taking on board all the tips and ideas and enjoying everyone's kind of blocks and what they're doing with their fabrics and everything like that, to give you inspiration to get started soon. Right, I'm going to go. I've got a whole bunch of mistletoe kiss quilt blocks to sew up, and I guess I'll see you on Wednesday in this week's Quilt Tube. I'll see you soon.